All right, welcome in everybody to today's ClassUp webinar, Unlocking Your Path to Top Colleges. My name is Mike Vogel. I am the Tutor Operations Manager and General Overseer of Tutors here at ClassUp One-on-One Online Education. We are really excited to bring you this webinar today. We're going to be talking about the ins and outs of top colleges, how best to prepare yourself for the application process, how to help yourself stand out in a world that is becoming more and more competitive every day. And we're going to be hearing from some expert narrative and advice here from some of our most accomplished ClassUp tutors who also happen to be active students at the United States' top universities. So I am joined by Sam McGrady, Kush Shankar, David Chung, and Hailee Gabaldo here, who all happen to be fantastic and accomplished tutors on our ClassUp platform, and also currently attending fantastic universities across the United States, representing Yale, Northwestern, and Brown University today. Our webinar will compose itself of a couple of different sections. We're going to have a panel discussion as we start the day today, where we're going to be going over some commonly asked questions and getting some expert advice from our panelists. We will also be collecting audience questions as we go along. So if you happen to have a question you would like to ask to our panelists, please go ahead and type that question out in the chat, and we will address questions in our final audience section when we get to it. At the very end today, we will also have a wonderful presentation by some members of our ClassUp team, more about what ClassUp tutoring is and how having a tutor can benefit you in the short and long term for optimizing your education. If anyone is having any issues listening, hearing audio cues, or if there are any other tech issues going on with presentation, please feel free to let us know in the chat, and we can slow down, speed up, or triage as we go. But we will be taking a look at questions again when it comes to general questions regarding panelists, discussions, and whatnot near towards the end. We again will have that presentation also at the very end, so please feel free to take a look once we get down towards the end of the day. So the very first thing we're going to do is we are going to ask some brief questions to our panelists, including a brief introduction about them, their education experience, and their background as active students. And we will start off with questions regarding the general college application and admissions process, because this is something that everybody gets a little bit overwhelmed with when it comes to the end of high school and how we optimize ourselves towards giving the best chances to our children and to ourselves, if we happen to be students ourselves here in the panel today, to getting into the best colleges. So to start us off today, go ahead and stop the screen share for now. We are going to toss our first question for today over to Sam McGrady. So Sam's one of fantastic panelists for today, and we are going to start off with just a quick introduction about your educational background and where you happen to be studying. And the first question is going to be involving crafting college applications. In a world that is becoming more and more competitive for colleges, do you have any tips and tricks or best practices that maybe you yourself used for helping yourself stand out and highlighting your unique experiences in your college apps?
100%. Okay, so first of all, hi, my name is Sam McGrady. Lovely to see you all. I attend Brown University currently, and I'm studying for visual arts. And hopefully, once I finish, I'll become an art teacher or an English teacher. I might double major in education, but we'll see about that. I tutored for about 2 years in high school while I was participating in the National Honor Society, which is an extracurricular group. And with that, in combination with my experience with ClassUp, that would be about 2.5 years of tutoring experience for me personally. As far as the application process goes, I would say that it's really easy to get hung up in the kinds of scores you should have, or the tests you should be taking, the classes that you should be in, and that is completely important, 100%. I participated in all of that. But I kind of view academics as more of a prerequisite for getting into a top college. Colleges are already looking for you to be working in rigorous classes and have great stats. They want to know about you personally. So number one tip for me is honesty, honesty, honesty. Even if you think your average person does not want to hear about it, they might. My essay that got me into Brown University, according to the person who actually recruited me into Brown University, like they told me themselves, was my essay about colors. And you would never think that someone would care enough about colors to actually write an essay about it. but that's part of what helped me stand out. You can take something completely mundane and write an entire 500 to 1,000 word essay about it, and it can be really intriguing to someone. So those are my tips.
That's fantastic. That insight of like, it doesn't need to be all academics. It doesn't need to be completely only about your GPA or only about your scores, but showing that personal touch and that nuance and uniqueness of your perspective is one of the ways that you can help stand out on a field where basically everybody is taking those hard classes and trying to get ahead academically. Thank you so much, Sam, for your perspective. We'll toss you some other questions later on in the talk for today. Our next question regarding this admissions landscape and process is going to be going towards David Chung. So we'll have you introduce yourself as well. And for you, let's talk a little bit about that ever-present and somewhat elusive component of the application process, leadership. Leadership is always talked to us about as this essential component of getting yourself ahead in your applications. But in your opinion, and maybe your own experience, how do you feel it's best to develop, foster, and demonstrate leadership qualities on an application?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, so my name is David, and I'm a recent graduate at Northwestern University, where I received both a Bachelor and Master of Science in Computer Science in just 4 years. And my teaching experience included throughout my high school years, I taught at this company on math from grade 5 to 7 on mathematics, and prepared them for the high school entrance exam. I've also taught throughout my college years about computer science, including artificial intelligence, data science, and computer graphics, and also taught a little bit of physics, and that's my specialty in teaching in the educational field. And as for the leadership, I would say to craft your the college application, I'll say to show your leadership skill, like you have to just go beyond academics, like we said earlier, and go beyond and go for the extracurricular activities, including a job or some kind of clubs. So personally, again, I tutored during my high school years, and as a lead tutor, where I was able to draft curriculums and lead other tutors in teaching the curriculum. And I was also on the math club, for all 4 years of high school, where I was able to be the team leader, and I scheduled and taught during the practices to ensure that my school got a good score at the competitions, or at least good enough scores to go to state. And if jobs were not feasible, because of your academic achievement, personally, I would say academics should come first. And then if you have good enough, at least maybe B or higher, then you can consider doing the job. If not, volunteering is also a good option. During my freshman year of college, I've also volunteered at a library, where I just taught new immigrants how to read English books. Yeah, that's showing leadership, just going outside of just academics when possible, and that's my advice.
Fantastic, right? That key word there being initiative, right? Taking the initiative, stepping outside the boundaries of academics and looking for opportunities to gain responsibility in ways that you might not expect would be useful in a college application, like getting a day job or volunteering your time at a community center, or any way in which that you can show your versatility and take that initiative to develop responsibility and show that there's more to you than just good grades. Excellent. Thank you so much for your insight, David. We'll come back to you with some questions later on today. All right. Our next question is going to be directed to Kush Shankar, and we're going to be moving towards another dimension of our application process, one that's been quite controversial in news sources and general discourse recently, which is standardized testing. As many of us know, the traditional standardized tests like the SAT and ACT, many schools have moved them to optional status. So my question to you, Kush, in your opinion, in your perspective, now that these tests are optional, we say optional with a heavy air quotes, because many students should probably still take these tests anyway, because you don't want to be the one person in the room who didn't do it. How do you recommend keeping a good mindset for preparing for these tests? And what benefits can we still get on applications from excelling at things like SAT and ACT?
Sure, Mike. So just a quick introduction. My name is Kush. I'm a current graduate student at Yale University. I'm studying public health and epidemiology. I was an undergrad graduate at USC. So I was from LA, now I'm in Connecticut. So coast to coast, it's been an interesting experience. And yes, I've been through college. This is my second time now, so definitely seasoned in this. And taking standardized testing has been a bane for me. I feel like there are those students who they can be just stellar in everything, but they're just not the test taking type. And that sucks. You know, that's the nature of it. Tests aren't meant for every type of student. But however, college applications, they at least want to see some kind of number. Fortunately, at most universities nowadays, they understand that numbers are, they can only be taken at face value. They don't really say anything else about the student. So they take a holistic approach. And as far as standardized tests go, there's still, like Mike said, there's something that you should take just because it is the norm. And there are ways to prepare for it. And each student is different. And I will say that from what I've heard from admissions faculty, that they look for good scores, but nowadays they're comparing it to the region from which you came. So it is kind of a comparative number versus an absolute thing, like, oh, getting above, like getting at least a 1400 on the SAT, for example. Versus, that's not the story anymore. Now it's how do you compare to other schools from your other students from your district. So unfortunately, now it is a comparison game. So like play to your skills is what I'm saying. If you don't know that you're a good test taker, then take the test, report some kind of number, but focus on everything else that matters to you more. What you think you will stand out in and gives yourself the best chance of getting the schools that you want. Like David said, if you do a lot of clubs, report that you're a club, report that you're a president of a club. Or as Sam said, show your individuality. Do you do other projects on the side? What's your art portfolio like? Do you program games? Do you look at data? Are you a sports team member? So tests, taking standardized tests, they're part of your admission like profile. Take them, but only give it so much time that you think is benefits you. If you're in a super competitive neighborhood like I was from, then you have to take it, but then focus on everything else too. Like hedge your bets is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Play to your strengths is our big message here, right? Even within the standardized testing world, there are different types of tests you can take. If you are getting better scores on your SAT or getting better scores on your ACT, optimize your experience and get yourself the best possible number that you can so that you don't set yourself behind in that comparison game. Fantastic perspective, Kush. Thank you so much. And I'm going to break from tradition here. Normally, we would answer audience questions at the very end, but we have one that's very topical right now. We have Arit in the chat here asking, so how does one even prepare for these tests? Is tutoring the way to go? Short answer, absolutely, right? Working with a tutor can be one of the most effective ways to help prepare for an exam for no other reason than you're talking to someone who has done it before, right? Someone who's seen the exam, who's gone through the process, someone who's been in that seat. And for nothing else, that person can give narrative help, can give advice on how to prepare yourself mentally, how to understand the questions that you're going to see, and be your ally, someone in your corner when you're getting ready to take this test that can be very stressful and very overwhelming in many cases for most students. So having a tutor in your corner is one of the most effective ways to help increase your score by virtue of just having another perspective and someone who can help prepare you for what it's going to feel like on test day. So absolutely, I think that probably all of our panelists would agree that tutoring, especially for standardized tests, can be extremely effective. All right. And we're going to move on forward here to our final panelists. Hailee is going to be answering our next question. And Hailee, I'm going to give you an interesting one, a very opinion-based question. There are 100 different ways to stand out academically in high school, different electives, different levels of honors courses, different APs, et cetera, et cetera. It can be overwhelming to kind of imagine what you should or shouldn't do when it comes to standing out academically. Do you have any personal favorite recommendations for if you were a high school student or talking to a high school student, choosing your classes and the best sorts of classes or types of classes to take to stand out academically? What would you recommend?
Great question. So I guess I'll introduce myself first. My name is Hailee, and I graduated from Yale University in 2021, where I studied ecology and evolutionary biology. And since graduating, I've worked in a number of different environmental education roles. And then also while I was a student at Yale, I actually did work for or I volunteered with Matriculate, which is a company that does college advising for high school students. And I guess the number one, or like the word that really pops into my head when you ask that question was being well-rounded. I think is super important. I think you can, take every single class that your school offers, but if you don't also have like extracurriculars or something that you care about outside of like your class, I think that like it's kind of like those balance of things that helps you stand out. And then if you're thinking about which classes will help you stand out, just that you can choose from, I mean, I would say it's going to depend on which school you go to. So like, for example, like my high school only offered, I don't know, 7 AP classes, and I took 5 or 6 of them. So like the college admissions officer is going to see that you took a really like large chunk of the, the AP classes that your school offers. Now, if your school offers like 20 AP classes, that's awesome, but you probably won't be able to take every single like AP class. So I would say definitely take the ones that are going to be most interesting for you and you're gonna like find some passion in. Like one of my friends took AP art, but I didn't take AP art because I wasn't as passionate about that. And I would definitely say go for the classes that you're gonna like learn the most from as well. And that can also prepare you for certain, like if you, for example, have an interest in the medical field, then you might want to take AP biology or some math classes, because you're going to have to take those classes as part of the prerequisites for your college program. And so that's also just thinking about practically what's going to be help you when you get to college.
Absolutely fantastic perspective on the practicality of honors classes rather than just taking an honors or an AP class because it's an honors or AP class. Consider those classes that are also going to give you skills that will make you more competitive in the major that you're looking for and help you succeed at a college level. Fantastic. We'll come back to you with some more insights on advanced level classes later on in the talk. Thank you so much, Hailee. All right, so great perspectives already so far, but we're going to shift now the general topic of our webinar towards the senior application process for high-level colleges, because one of the things that all of our panelists have in common is that we have all attended or are currently attending some of the best universities in the United States. So there are some nuances to applying to and succeeding in these universities that we're going to talk about now, and the best place to talk about them are for people who have lived these experiences and gone through them themselves. So we're going to push a question back now to Kush. We'll start here back with Kush. And Kush, I would love your perspective on the college interview process. This is something that is a unique experience to some of the top universities in the US, where instead of just submitting an application, you also meet with and speak with an interviewer from the college that you're interested in attending. So do you have any tips about how to help, or for rising seniors, about how to get into the right mindset for these college interviews and what they should expect, questions that top universities might be asking them?
It's a really important point. I will say that when you're invited to an interview, that's a really good sign that they want to know something about you that they could not glean off of paperwork or essays. They're looking for how you react to certain difficult questions, what kinds of ideas you have on the spot, certain experiences that are probably too long to put down on paper, that they want to hear from like your voice sitting in front of them or on Zoom or whatever. So the correct mindset to be in is kind of like how Sam was alluding to earlier, is like to be honest, be your truest self, but also come prepared with stories. Like don't make things on the spot, like know certain anecdotes, experiences, both good and bad, that you can bring to the table to show that I grew, and I'm worthy of being at this institution because of my ability to grow. And these are the skills that I learned and that I'm hoping to either ameliorate or flex more at that university. So you have to be confident, and it is not at all like them like attacking you with questions. They're truly there to learn more about you that they could not have known just looking at your application. I guess that also means don't come with like a resume bullet list, things to say. They don't want a scripted answer. That's the worst thing you could do, because that tells them that you're not capable of being genuine and authentic. Instead, you're just one of those people that can memorize and regurgitate. That's something anybody can do. That's not something that a top university seasoned person like they should be able to go beyond that. So be genuine, be flexible, be a good improviser, and practice. I feel like a lot of high schools, at least in the higher income range, you guys have advisors that can do mock interviews with you. So if you have that resource, use it, because that's a privilege to have. So don't squander those. So those are my top tips.
Absolutely fantastic perspective on someone who's gone through the process themselves. I'd also love to pass a similar question back up to Sam as well. Adding on to this, there was an interesting point that Kush brought up about showing authenticity and speaking authentically in the interview context and talking about yourself and about your interests. Do you have any tips, particularly from your own experience, about how to authentically communicate both your strengths and weaknesses to either an interviewer or on an application essay, or in any way where you're speaking from the heart and not sounding like you looked up how to write an essay on an AI generator and just pasted it in?
100%. First of all, please do not rely on ChatGPT to help you with college, please. Secondly, something that I think a lot of people kind of gloss over is that colleges, regardless of whether it's a top university or not, are looking for well-rounded individuals, and well-rounded individuals go through change, whether that's a physical change, an internal change, one or the other influencing vice versa. A change is always going to be something that a college is going to view as valuable, especially if you can notice that you yourself went through that change. That means that you have some kind of self-awareness, which is a very valuable trait. A question that stood out to me when I was applying to Brown actually was, what is an experience you endured that changed your perspective on something? And a lot of people are scared to go into taboo topics like religion or politics or personal opinion. But those experiences, as long as you can word them in a way where you're being completely 100% you, those are not topics you necessarily have to stray away from. I answered that question with politics in mind, and I got in. Not that I was bashing anyone on either side of the political spectrum, but I was offering the fact that I am able to give people the benefit of the doubt. I can have a well-rounded conversation with someone regardless of their political standing. And that's something that Brown specifically found reliable and as a good trait. So change, 100%. If you can show a college that you in some way, shape, or form have changed from the person that you were when you entered high school versus when you got out, they're gonna find that very valuable.
Wonderful, right? Highlighting, as the literary among us might call, the liminal space, right? Moments of change in your life where you have transitioned from either one perspective to another, or one position to another, or some foundational part of you has grown or evolved. Wonderful answers here on that notion of how to stand out and excel in these interview situations. Now, to change topic ever so slightly, but in a similar vein, I'm going to pass a question to David and Hailee. Now, we'll start with David. One omnipresent factor of both undergraduate and graduate applications is letters of recommendation and forming relationships with students or teachers and your professors. Do you have any tips and tricks from your own experience about how best to cultivate relationships with your teachers and your professors to find good letters of recommendation?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so for letter of recommendation, again, yeah, it's important to foster a good relationship with the teacher. And one of the ways I did it back in high school was by participating in class. And of course, that doesn't mean you have to like raise your hand every single class, but you just have to show that you're paying attention, you're asking good question. And another factor is by asking question or asking for help when needed. So this way that the teacher would know that you're trying hard, even though you might not be understanding the material and you're trying to get good grades in that class, right? And I'll say the best letter recommendations are from the ones that can show growth and interest, like Kush and Sam said earlier, growth is the way to go. And the two letter of recommendations were from my English teacher, my AP English language composition teacher and my computer science teacher. So personally, I was struggling to write effectively or write effective essays in just 50 minutes of time, during one period. So I'll always stay after school and to write extra essays. Over time, I got better, and he gladly wrote me a letter of recommendation for my senior year when I applied to Northwestern. He gladly wrote me, and I didn't know what he wrote, but I'm sure it was about my growth, my dedication, and time to spend on something that I'm not very good at. And the other letter of recommendation was on something of my interest. So in my high school years, I always wanted to do some kind of tech major in college. So I took AP Computer Science. So I went to that teacher for my letter of recommendation. And so because of that, I can clearly show my interest during my application to Northwestern, and I got in, and he happily wrote it for me. And again, showing growth and showing your interest can definitely help you get into the college of your choice.
Fantastic, right? Fostering those relationships with teachers, especially ones who have witnessed your growth, right? That's kind of the key point. Maybe not a teacher in a class that you've just been completely acing and have just been getting A's every single assignment. That teacher hasn't really seen you struggle, hasn't seen you work, hasn't seen you evolve as a person. But teachers in classes that you may not have been doing so well in might be the best sorts of teachers to ask for help and ask for these letters of rec, because they have the perspective on you as a student, as an individual who's able to overcome adversity. Now, on that same note of interacting and fostering relationships, Hailee, I'd love to ask for your perspective. Put yourself in the shoes of maybe some of our attendees here, or the children of our attendees who may have a more difficult or more challenging time developing relationships with teachers. Maybe they're scared or worried about speaking up in class, nervous about asking questions for being perceived as not succeeding in the classroom, or being otherwise worried or having trepidation about interacting with teachers. Do you have any advice to these students or parents to help coach their children about how to better open up to teachers and educators so that they can start to build these relationships?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think like at the end of the day, you just have to remember that teachers are people too. And often a lot of teachers have kids that are either your age or younger. And so they know that like they know that you might be nervous, or they know that you are going to struggle, or you might be struggling, because not everyone is going to get 100% everything every day of their life. So I think it's important to like bring back the human aspect, that like teachers are just also people too, and like they are there to like be mentors. They're not just there to like give you information. They're there to like really help you along. And like I think most I can I don't know if I can speak for all teachers, but I think most people become teachers so that they can like see growth in the kids that they're teaching. And so to kind of approach them with that, and with that in mind as well, I think that is something that you can think about when interacting with teachers. And I also would add on kind of to the, I guess, the prior point, and say that you shouldn't be afraid to show them a little bit of your personality, because that's also what's gonna have them like, they'll know more about you and who you are, and then they can really speak to who you are, which is I think what we've kind of been echoing here with talking about essays and interviews as well, that a college, like, you can have great grades and great scores, but a college isn't going to know who you are as a person, without these kind of extra components. So that's why I think that it's also super important to try to like just be yourself, which sounds kind of cheesy, but be yourself when you're participating in class, and bring whatever you can bring to the table. But yeah, I would say definitely just remembering that teachers are people too, and that like oftentimes, yeah, you don't need to go into every class answering every question. They just appreciate that you're there and that you're learning from them.
Wonderful. I think that's one of the most valuable tips that you can get with this interaction with teachers, is that teachers are not your enemies. Teachers are your friends. They're there to help you and support you. And I think many students, especially nowadays, enter into the school process with this opinion that teachers have one goal in life, which is to find some way to give you a bad grade and make it harder for you to get to college. But that's not what teachers are here for, right? Everyone in the education space, teachers, tutors, mentors, everybody is here for the growth of students and help students succeed. That's what we're here to do. And interacting with teachers with that in mind, not being afraid to ask for help and support when it's needed, is one of the best ways to develop and foster that connection with them. Fantastic perspectives, wonderful perspectives we've gotten from our panelists so far. We're now going to take a look at some audience questions that have been sent in and talk about some themes that come up here. For these audience questions, we're going to address it to anyone who would like to answer. So if you would like to take on a question from the audience that I read out, you can feel free to raise your hand or use the Zoom raise hand function, and we can have some multiple people give perspectives on a question if we would like. So for question number one here, a very hot button topic when it comes to the end of high school situation. We have a question about stress. What are the best ways to manage the stress of the application process? Does anybody have any tips or tricks from their own experience about how to handle that stress element? Sam, go for it.
The reason why I was so quick to raise my hand in the first place is because I was just diagnosed with anxiety, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, everything makes so much sense now. But I think the most important thing here would be, as a parent, be a resource for your child. Not everyone can afford therapy or psychiatry. That is something that is a luxury to a lot of people, including myself when I was younger and going through the application process. So regardless of how well your child is doing in school, they could have straight A's. They could be literally starting a company. I don't care. Simply going up to them and asking them, hey, are you okay? How are applications doing? How are you having any trouble writing your essays? Is there anything I can help you with, even if you yourself are not specializing in the subjects that they need in order to succeed properly? Just being there as a shoulder to cry on or someone to bounce ideas off of, giving your opinion because your child probably really values your opinion considering that you're their parent. Just being there in the background while they're taking on the brunt of that stress is amazing for any child, regardless of what their academic standing is.
Wonderful perspective. Kush, something to add?
Thanks for sharing with us that story, Sam. I'm pretty neurotypical, so I don't deal with those issues. But I will say that just being here on this webinar, I think, is a great step. Just learning like perspectives from people who have been through it. And I don't want you to think of this as like, oh, us five are sitting on this high horse and like saying all this stuff when we're already in it. But we worked our butts off to get here, each one of us, and we've done we've done a lot to get here, and we've learned a lot of lessons, and we're here to share it with you. So the more perspective that you can build is going to help you. And I feel like that goes in tandem with starting early. I feel like stress builds up the more you procrastinate. And if you are a chronic procrastinator, it's pretty normal. But this is like one of the first adulting things I feel like I truly had to do in high school. Where it's like you're on your own for this application. Technically, you have all this outside help. It's your choice to use it, but that application doesn't get like you at the end of the day, you're writing the essay, you're pressing the submit button. That's on you. So the earlier you start, the less stress you're going to have accumulated down the road. So if you're on here and you're preparing for the 2024 cycle, you're so ahead of the game. So I applaud you for that. Keep on that roll. If you started this past summer, like writing practice essays or doing practice tests for the SAT, ACT, good on you. Keep on that. Don't let that steam roll off.
Fantastic. Wonderful perspectives on stress management. All right, I have another question from the chat here. We have, aside from school counselors, are there outside independent coaches that can help a 12th grader through their application process? Putting everything together at this step can be overwhelming. Does anyone have any suggestions about working with college counselors or how to find a good resource for someone to get in touch with or talk to in this process? Maybe perhaps did anybody work with a college counselor themselves? Or, all right, Kush, go for it.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to work with a college counselor. These were outside of the school district, so they were like their own private business. And these are people like you pay them a lot of money, but for a good reason. They know what they're talking about. They have a lot of experience. They put a lot of students through different institutions. I did high school in California, so like it's a pretty competitive out in the Bay Area, so it's a pretty competitive region in general. So there's a high demand for those kinds of counselors. Um, yeah, so if you're in 12th grade right now and you're seeing a counselor, sorry, an independent coach, they're a great resource because like as a coach, they train you. Like their job is to help you build that muscle to help you with the application process. I would say they're worth it if you're looking for like the top tier schools, like the ones that we're at currently or graduated from. I think it's a good investment. But you know, it's not always needed. I know a lot of people who are in my program, they kind of just submit an application raw. They're just, you know, they're stars, they're talented. So once again, play to your strengths. If you feel like you need a coach, go for it. But also coaches can also provide a lot of stress. Once again, you're a senior, you're taking AP courses because you're trying to get that college credit. Maybe you're a president of a few clubs. Maybe you do a sport. So if you can handle a counselor, I'd say go for it. I think it's a great resource to have, but don't overburden yourself. Know your strengths.
Fantastic. Hailee, something to add?
Yeah, I would just add on that if you are from a first generation and or low income background, the program that I mentioned before that I worked with, Matriculate, I believe you have to apply to that program, but they train college students to basically walk you through all parts of the process. And I don't usually you start it as a junior, but I don't think that I think that they would also accept seniors as well into the program. So that is just another option for um, if you don't have like the resources to hire an independent coach as well. Just put that out there.
Wonderful perspective. Absolutely. There are awesome public resources. There are youth counselors that exist out there in the ecosystem as well. Or if you're looking for something that's a little bit more generalized, consulting with a tutoring company, not unlike ClassUp, might be useful for you to get a perspective and meet with somebody, for example, one of our fantastic panelists who have gone through this process, who can help you through the process. So whether it's an independent coach or a counselor or a tutor, auxiliary resources are a wonderful way to, kind of connected to our first question, take a little bit of that stress burden off and give you some structure and some direction when it comes to what could otherwise be a very chaotic application process. All right, we got time for a couple more questions, so let's go on to our next one. The next question is going to be about the nature of early action and early decision admissions. Does anybody have any perspective about applying early action or early decision to a college and whether it's a good or bad idea to really hedge your bets on that one college you really want to go to? Sam.
Do it, please do. I took a really big risk in my application process. I applied solely through QuestBridge, and QuestBridge only has like a certain selection of colleges, and almost all of them have an acceptance rate below 15%. I only applied to 4 colleges, and all of them were 10% and below, which a lot of people would think is an insane thing to do. And I'm not saying I disagree with that, but that is what I decided to do. And all of those, I applied early decision. With all of the AP classes, extracurriculars, part-time job, just wanting to live my life, waiting until the middle of the year to apply to colleges on top of that, with how robust these college applications can be, especially the top ones, because I want to know as much about you as a person as possible. Keeping that stress as minimal as possible, just as we were talking about earlier, because at the end of the day, as Kush mentioned before, it is your responsibility to get these things in. Apply early decision, please. I'm begging you, please. Because adding all that extra stress on top of yourself, knowing that it's already stressful to exist as a student, there's no point. And also, a lot of colleges really enjoy if you apply early decision, you will get your decision back earlier most times. And it shows that you are a responsible person taking care of your stuff early on. For me personally, for as many colleges as you possibly can, if you're going to be applying to several, apply early decision.
Fantastic. Strong recommendation coming from Sam. Let's go down to David. Your perspective.
Yeah, so I so early decision is only for you if you know where you want to go, because it is legally binding. If they accept you, you have to go. So personally, I do, I want to stay in my state. I was from Illinois. I want to stay, close to family. So I already know, like, from top colleges near Illinois is U Chicago or Northwestern. So, I just chose Northwestern. I knew I wanted to go there. So I'm gonna apply to like some other colleges, like maybe Urbana or University of Chicago or Illinois at Chicago. And early decision is only for if you really really want to go. And I knew from the start I really really wanted to go there. And of course that depends on you to do the research, right? Please do the research early. Know what the school are, what programs they offer, what they offer you, and does that make your fit. And I found out that Northwestern, location is good, programs are good, perfect fit for me. Early decision, really early. I made the early decision really early. Early. Yeah.
Fantastic, right? When you know, and don't be afraid to go for it. Now, Hailee, your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think early action you can apply, that's not binding at all.
Mhm.
So like if you're really considering a school and it has an early action decision, I would just suggest to do so. And I guess I can share my story as well. Like I applied early action to Yale and then I got deferred. So I didn't really have an answer in December when they let you know. And then I got deferred and then I got in the regular decision cycle. So sometimes, and I think that it could, help you out, especially even if you get deferred, that means they're still like thinking about you. Like you're still a thought in like the admissions officers' heads, right? And so like to not be discouraged as well, if that happens. And yeah, I just, yeah, apply early action as well if that's an option.
Right. Early action, again, is not that super binding commitment. Early decision is the one that you moonshot for. It's like, that's the one college I want to go to. I'm only applying there. Please take me. But I think Hailee's narrative is a fantastic support to this notion that a lot of students take a deferral as the same as a rejection. If I get deferred from a school, they're not going to take me, they're not going to accept me, but that's not true, right? You're still in the game. If you get deferred from early action, you're still in consideration, and it's very likely, or just as likely, they may consider you again in regular decision cycles. So applying early action gives you kind of that second chance. It shows that aggressive interest in the school that the school is going to like to see. So go for it, right? If you know that list of schools that you're interested in, you know where you want to go, there's very, very little wrong with taking that shot and going for early action. Fantastic. All right, let's do one final question for today before we hand it off to our ClassUp representatives to end our day today. This or I'm not sure if anybody has a narrative on this or perhaps an opinion on this, but we have a question here about gap years and transfers. Did you have any perspectives or opinions on whether or not it's a wise or good idea that if you're not necessarily getting into the school that you want to get into, taking a gap year or deferring your application until the following year and taking a year to enrich yourself and do something else? Kush, go for it.
Yeah, so I actually technically did this. I didn't take a whole gap year. I took a gap semester, you could call it. So before attending USC in Los Angeles, I was accepted as what they call them spring admits. So you don't go into the fall, you go the next following spring. So they don't do that anymore, I believe. I think it's very rare for us schools to do that nowadays. The only reason they would do it is because of like space capacity or whatever. But I spent that fall, I had a lot of choices. I could have like worked a full-time job. I could have traveled. I could have done community college. I could have done something like that. I chose to go to Switzerland. So I went to a different school over there. I was a part-time student. I went and I experienced a new culture, a new place. It was for some reason, flying and living in Switzerland was a lot cheaper than a semester at USC, if you can believe it. So that's, I guess, another reminder that these top schools aren't cheap. But I had an enriching time. It was very world building, very eye-opening. And I think the benefit just kept giving because once you put yourself in that kind of culture shock or that new environment, you have new stories to tell. So that helped me apply to grad school later on, to say that like I hiked the Alps and I took measurements in the Alps. So, you know, that shows that like I'm outdoorsy, I'm a nerd, I like math, like all of that just keeps on going. So if you decide to take a gap semester, a gap year, 2 gap year, like whatever, whether it's reasons for money or you don't get the school that you want, continue to build your experience. If you have the means to go outside of your bubble, experience something new, do it, because that's invaluable. That's the gift that keeps giving. If you don't have that means, but you have access to the internet or your community, like build a project, do something with the resources that you have. Like my brother makes video games, and he was able to report that to his colleges when he applied. So that's something you can do just sitting at your desk, like just 8 hours of the day. If you're active in your community, go volunteer or be like an assistant coach somewhere. Tutor, like become a tutor. It's actually it's quite easy to become a tutor, and it's quite lucrative too. There's so much that you can do with time outside of school. And even though it seems like, oh, I'm falling behind, all my past high school friends, they're in college and they're going to go get a degree and I'm a year behind. There is no such thing as a year behind as long as you're doing something. In fact, you might be the next CEO of some big company if you decide to do something. So there is no pressure to go to college immediately. It is the norm. And in today's economy, it's the next best thing. But truly, it's what you make of your experience. Be authentic, continue to do stuff and be productive. That's the best I can say.
Fantastic, right? That perspective of if it's not panning out the way you want it to, enrich yourself in some other method. Travel, experience the world, start some new project, get involved in your local communities, do something to give yourself a new skill set, give yourself a new look and perspective. And it's just as valuable and valid as that first year that you might be rushing straight into college. Thank you, all of our panelists, for your amazing perspectives on these questions. It has been fantastic to have you all here, and this is going to end the panel discussion portion of today's talk. So thank you, everybody, for coming in. Now, for our attendees today, we're going to have a short talk and presentation from some representatives of ClassUp one-on-one tutoring. I would love to introduce at this time our representatives, Lucas and Katrina, who are going to be talking to us about some of ClassUp's intricacies and what it means to work with a one-on-one online tutor. And if you're interested in working in that capacity and what ClassUp has to offer, please stick around and learn a little bit about what we do. All right, Lucas or Katrina, go ahead and get us started.
I don't, oh, there we go. Okay, so I feel like the biggest aspect of what it is that we have provided over the summer especially is making sure that students are in the right place to start school this upcoming year. Obviously, the biggest focus over summer is not exactly the kids staying on their studies, but they're trying to have fun. And with a new school year comes new challenges and new dynamics and new classes. So we really want to work with the parents and the school with teachers they have to outline what their objectives are, whether that be on a personal level and what it is that they are struggling with or what they are looking to enrich in order to excel in their studies, really focus on the challenges that they have previously had in past years, and also obtaining the syllabus for the classes that they need assistance in to ensure that we are going along their school guidelines and what their lesson plans look like in order to overcome any obstacles they may have throughout the school year and really advance in their studies to ultimately become the best student possible. And next up, a little bit about what we provide. Everything we do is very systematic. We're not just going to throw a book at you and your student in order for you to complete some work whenever you have time to do so. We are going to create lines of communication so that we figure out what those areas are that they need to become more advanced in to build the best curriculum possible. And we do that by providing you guys the access to these highly trained teachers from top colleges that have years of experience and have had a lot of success working with our students in the past. Only 1% of teachers who apply to work with us get accepted. And that way we can assure that you will be receiving quality no matter what. Everything will be completely personalized. So like I had previously said, it's all customizable. Whatever you want to focus on a week-by-week basis, we can do so, whether that be supplementary to what they are doing in the classroom or reviewing homework materials that they are struggling with. or even going over what an upcoming exam is going to look like, or essays that they have to write in order to ensure that they receive the best grade possible and are not only just hearing the information, but understanding it by creating a one-on-one mentorship with the teachers that we provide. And as far as the one-on-one environment, I've seen so many students that we have worked with so far really take advantage of the fact that it is just them and the tutor. Obviously, within our education system, a lot of classes can be kind of overwhelming with 30 students and one teacher. Things get very distracting. Kids are going to be kids. And so we really highlight the utilization of our app in that one-on-one virtual classroom to ensure that they are able to focus as best as possible. We're going to be saving time and energy by really being able to focus on what the actual lesson looks like, as opposed to any distractions that they would be encountering in a normal classroom. Ultimately, which leads to improving their retention. So like I had previously said, not just hearing things, but really understanding the concepts that they are going to be going over with the tutors so that they can carry that with them long-term into the classroom and forward into the succeeding grades that they have. We really want to focus on finding the gaps that they have through the assessment that we provide before really starting this comprehensive curriculum so that we can identify any issues that there are, ultimately to foster more comprehensive understanding of these concepts so that they can really become experts at that class. And of course, like I had said before as well, kids are going to be kids. Oftentimes, some students can get a little bit nervous about asking questions. I know I was when I was in elementary school, especially, and middle and high school. I was never really great at math, so I never really spoke up as far as the questions I wanted to ask. So in turn, this creates a safe environment for them to be open with the teacher about what they do not understand, so they can convey anything that they feel is missing from their own understanding of the subject, ultimately to become the best possible at math, science, history, English, whatever it may be.
Oh, thanks, Lucas. So yeah, I'm Katrina. I'm just gonna talk about like our teachers' resource here is the best in the United States. Actually, we really care about their teaching experiences. So half of them are over 5 years of teaching experiences, and we also recruit a lot of like great Ivy League graduate students. Although their teaching experiences is not that much, but whatever they learned and they're good, like this is kind of the best resource you can get. And the connection, if you're especially want to apply to one of the top Ivy League schools, this is the best one. So yeah, and we also did 100% background check, so we trust on our quality and safety. We only accept less than 1% of the teachers to make sure it's the best we can gain here. Yeah. So yeah, after the class, we have really great like different kind of resources you can use. First of all, after each class, you're gonna receive the teacher's written feedback within this ClassUp app. So even if you're not at the classroom with the student at the time, you're always able to see what is learned. Is there any homeworks and anything need to practice for the rest of the like weeks? And also, since we're doing online classes, it's very beneficial. Everything is recorded, including the trial class we're going to offer. So anytime your student can just rewatch any sessions for future like practice or just to review it, it's very helpful to by practice and to rewatch the sessions. And one more is after you become a membership, we have a really good like learning partner service. They're gonna support you along the way, no matter you want to reschedule any class, or if you want to just take a little break in between, or if you want to add any other sessions with another like subject with the best teacher, everything is very customized and always support you. So this is the best we can gain for our child, of course. Yeah, and this comes to our end of our like today's webinar, and thank you so much for everybody attended. And feel free to scan this QR bar if you're interested in to have a look of our official website and what classes we offer, and also sign up for a free trial session if you want your kids to, you know, have a taste before going for the long-term like classes with us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katrina and Lucas, for that fantastic presentation. And thank you to all of our attendees for coming in and sharing this time with us today. Again, scan this QR code here that is up on the screen if you'd like to learn a little bit more about ClassUp one-on-one tutoring or sign up for a trial lesson with one of our fantastic tutors. You can also visit us at www.classup.com if you would like to learn a little bit more about our offerings and what we have to provide. Once again, a recording of today's webinar will be sent out to all attendees following the presentation today. So thank you everybody once again for coming in. If you would like to review anything that came in today, look out for that recording being sent to your email. We'll leave this QR code up for another minute or two for anybody to take a look at if you would like. But once again, this is the end of our talk today. So we would like to thank all attendees, all panelists, all members of ClassUp's team, and all of our wonderful students and parents that came to share the afternoon with us today. We will be hosting more exploratory webinars such as these throughout the rest of 2023. So take a look and check out your emails for more notifications from ClassUp about upcoming opportunities to share in our community's experience and to meet and engage with some of our educators. From myself, again, Mike Vogel, Tutor Operations Manager here at ClassUp, I give you a sincere thank you for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Have a great one, everybody, and have a good rest of your day.